I was supposed to be guest of honor at my son's wedding, but I didn't make it, and here's why. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning in April. Heavy cream-colored cardstock with gold embossed lettering. My son Philip was getting married to his girlfriend Claire on June 15th. The ceremony would be at the Riverside Estate, the most expensive venue in town. At the bottom, in elegant script, it read, "Special seating reserved for Father the Groom, our honored guest." I should have been thrilled. My only son was getting married. I should have been planning my speech, buying a new suit, feeling proud and emotional. Instead, I felt uneasy. Something about the invitation felt wrong. Too formal. Too distant. Like I was being invited as a guest rather than welcomed as family. Philip and I had been close once. When he was young, we'd spent every weekend together. Fishing trips, baseball games, building things in the garage. He'd looked up to me, told me I was his hero. But things changed after his mother, and I divorced 10 years ago. Philip had been 18, angry at the world, taking sides he shouldn't have had to take. He'd chosen his mother. Slowly, over the years, our relationship had become strained. Phone calls grew shorter. Visits became less frequent. Still, he was my son, and this was his wedding. I called him immediately to congratulate him and confirm I'd be there. The conversation was brief. Polite. Cold. "Thanks for calling, Dad," Philip said when he answered. His voice sounded formal, like he was talking to a business associate. "Of course. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you both." "Yeah, thanks. So you got the invitation?" "Just now. June 15th. I'll be there. Wouldn't miss it for anything." Silence on the other end. Then, "Good. Claire wanted to make sure we sent you one. She thought it would be rude not to." The word stung. Claire had insisted, not Philip, like inviting his own father was a courtesy rather than a given. "Well, I appreciate it," I said carefully. "Can I take you to lunch this week? Maybe talk about the wedding? I'd love to hear your plans." I'm pretty busy with work and wedding stuff. Claire's handling most of it anyway. But thanks for offering. "Philip, is everything okay? You sound distant." "Everything's fine. I just have a lot going on. Look, I need to run. See you at the wedding." He hung up before I could respond. I sat holding the phone, feeling like I'd been dismissed. My own son treating me like an obligation he needed to check off his list. I looked at the invitation again. Guest of honor. The words fell hollow now. I was being honored in title only, not in reality. Over the next few weeks, I tried reaching out several times. Text messages asking about the wedding. Calls that went to voicemail. Everything was met with short, polite responses that gave nothing away. Something was happening. Something I wasn't being told. In early May, I ran into Philip's mother, Diane, at the grocery store. We'd maintained a civil relationship after the divorce, mostly for Philip's sake. She looked uncomfortable when she saw me. "Hello, Thomas," she said stiffly. "Diane, how are you?" "Fine. Busy helping with wedding plans." "I'd love to help too, if there's anything I can do." She shifted her shopping basket from one hand to the other. "I think they have everything covered." "Have you noticed Philip being distant lately? He barely talks to me about the wedding." Her face changed slightly. Something like guilt crossed her features. "He's just stressed. Wedding planning is overwhelming." "It feels like more than that. Like he doesn't want me there." "Don't be dramatic, Thomas. Of course he wants you there. You're his father." But her tone suggested otherwise. She knew something. I could see it in the way she avoided my eyes. "Diane, if there's something going on, I need to know. Please." She looked around the store nervously, then leaned closer. "It's not my place to say, but you should talk to Philip. Really talk to him. Before the wedding." "I've tried. He won't engage with me." "Try harder." She grabbed a can from the shelf randomly and walked away quickly, leaving me standing alone in the pasta aisle. That conversation haunted me. Whatever was happening, Diane knew about it, and she felt guilty enough to warn me, even if she wouldn't tell me directly. I decided to drive to Philip's house unannounced. It was Saturday morning. I knew he'd be home. Maybe if I showed up in person, he couldn't avoid me. His house was in a new development outside the city. Nice neighborhood. Two-story colonial with a perfect lawn. He'd done well for himself as a software engineer. I'd always been proud of his success. I knocked on the door. Claire answered. She was beautiful, put together, smiling politely in a way that didn't reach her eyes. Thomas, this is unexpected. I'm sorry for dropping by. I was hoping to talk to Philip. He's working in his office. Let me get him. She left me standing on the porch, didn't invite me in, just disappeared inside, and left me waiting like a door-to-door salesman. 5 minutes later, Philip came out. He didn't look happy to see me. Dad, what are you doing here? I needed to talk to you, face to face. You've been avoiding me. I haven't been avoiding you. I've just been busy. Philip, please. I'm your father. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Just tell me what's going on. He sighed heavily and stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. Nothing's wrong. You're overthinking this. Then why won't you talk to me about the wedding? Why do I feel like I'm an inconvenience instead of your dad? You're not an inconvenience. But you have to understand, Claire's family is very involved. They're paying for most of the wedding. They have expectations. What does that have to do with me? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Look, just show up on June 15th. Sit where you're assigned. Smile for photos. That's all anyone expects. His words felt like a slap. Show up. Sit down. Smile. Like I was a prop in someone else's production. Is that really all you want from me? Just to fill a seat? Dad, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Make what harder? Being your father? Caring about your wedding? Philip's jaw tightened. You want the truth? Fine. Claire's family doesn't think you should be heavily involved. They think you're unreliable, that you weren't there for me growing up. My chest felt tight. That's not true. I was there. Your mother and I shared custody. Shared custody where you travel for work constantly, where you miss birthdays and school events, where I spent most weekends alone because you were always busy. I was building a career to support you, to pay child support and put you through college. You were building a career for yourself, he interrupted. And now Claire's family thinks you'll embarrass them. They think you're not polished enough, not their kind of people. The words hung between us like poison. Claire's family had judged me, found me lacking, and Philip had agreed with them. What do you think? I asked quietly. He looked away. I think it's easier if we just keep things simple. You come to the wedding. You're acknowledged, but you don't give a speech. You don't sit at the head table. You don't. I'm being demoted, I said flatly, at my own son's wedding. You're being realistic. This is Claire's day, her family's event. I'm just trying to keep everyone happy. Everyone except me. He didn't respond. The silence was answer enough. I drove home in a fog. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. My own son had essentially uninvited me from any meaningful role in his wedding because his future in-laws thought I wasn't good enough, and he'd gone along with it, chosen their approval over his own father. When I got home, I sat in my living room staring at that invitation. Guest of honor. What a joke. I wasn't being honored. I was being tolerated. I thought about not going, just sending a gift and a polite note declining the invitation. But that felt like giving up, like admitting they were right about me. Instead, I decided to do something I probably shouldn't have. I called an old friend who worked at the Riverside estate. Gerald had been my college roommate. We'd stayed in touch over the years. He'd become the event coordinator at the venue. If anyone knew what was really happening with this wedding, it would be him. Thomas, good to hear from you. What's going on? My son's getting married at your venue in June. Philip Walker. I was wondering if you could tell me anything about the event. Oh, yeah. The Walker Morrison wedding. Big event. Really elaborate. The Morrison family is going all out. Morrison? That's Claire's family. Right. Her father is Charles Morrison. Real estate developer. Lots of money. Very particular about everything. He's been micromanaging every detail. My stomach sank. What kind of details? Gerald hesitated. Listen, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but since you're the groom's father, Mr. Morrison has been very specific about family seating arrangements, and speeches, and photo lineups. What do you mean? Gerald's voice dropped lower, like he was worried someone might overhear. Mr. Morrison requested that your seating be in the general guest section, not with immediate family. And he specifically said you weren't on the speaker list for the reception. Who was on the speaker list? Best man, maid of honor, bride's father, bride's brother. No one from the groom's side except the best man, who's actually a friend of both families. I felt sick. What about photos? Family photos are Morrison family plus the bride and groom. Then separate shots with extended family. You're listed as extended family. Extended family. Like I was a distant uncle instead of Philip's father. Gerald, did Philip agree to all this? I don't know, man. These arrangements came through Morrison's assistant. Everything's been coordinated through them. Your son has barely been involved in the planning at all. Is that normal? Not really. Usually both families are involved. But when one family is paying for everything, they tend to control everything too. I thanked Gerald and hung up. The picture was becoming clear. Charles Morrison had bought his way into complete control of the wedding, and Philip had let him, had sacrificed his own father's role to keep his wealthy future in-laws happy. For the next week, I tried to process this. Part of me was angry, furious that Philip would allow this. But another part was hurt, deeply, painfully hurt that I mattered so little to him now. Then something happened that changed everything. I received a call from an unknown number. When I answered, a woman's voice said, "Is this Thomas Walker?" "Yes." "Who's this?" "My name is Natalie Morrison. I'm Claire's sister. We need to talk." My heart raced. About what? About the wedding. About what my family is doing to you. Can we meet somewhere? Today, if possible. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop across town. I arrived early, nervous and confused. Why would Claire's sister want to talk to me? Natalie arrived 15 minutes later. She was younger than Claire, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair and kind eyes. She looked uncomfortable as she sat down across from me. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. "I know this is strange, but I couldn't stay silent anymore." "About what?" She took a deep breath. "My father is controlling your son's wedding, completely controlling it, and he's doing it deliberately to exclude you and humiliate your family." "Why would he do that?" "Because he's a snob. Because he thinks your family isn't good enough for his daughter. Because he wants everyone to know that the Morrisons are superior." Her words confirmed what I'd suspected, but hearing it stated so bluntly still hurt. "Philip is allowing this," she continued, "but not because he doesn't care about you. Because my father threatened him." I sat up straighter. "Threatened him how?" "My father owns a company where Philip works. He's Philip's boss. He told Philip that if he didn't agree to everything my father wanted for the wedding, he'd fire him and blacklist him in the industry." My blood ran cold. Natalie kept talking, her words tumbling out like she'd been holding them in too long. "My father is ruthless. He's been planning this wedding like a corporate merger. Everything is about image and control and showing off." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because it's wrong. Because you're Philip's father and you deserve to be treated with respect. And because someone needs to stand up to my dad." "Does Claire know about this?" Natalie looked down at her coffee cup. "Claire knows. She's not as bad as our father, but she goes along with everything he wants. She's always been desperate for his approval. And Philip, how is he handling this?" "Miserably. I've seen him at family dinners. He looks defeated, like he's trapped, but he's too scared to fight back because he can't afford to lose his job." I felt anger building in my chest. Not at Philip anymore, but at Charles Morrison. This man I'd never met was manipulating my son, controlling his life, forcing him to choose between his career and his family. "What can I do?" I asked. Natalie reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "I brought you something. Documentation of everything my father has done. Emails, messages, records of his demands and threats. I made copies secretly. She slid the folder across the table. I can't stop him directly. He's my father and I live in his house. But you can. You can expose him. Make him accountable. If I do that, won't it hurt Claire? And Philip? Probably. But doing nothing will hurt them more. My father will control their entire marriage if someone doesn't stop him now. I opened the folder that night and read everything. Emails from Charles Morrison to the wedding planner, detailing exactly how to minimize my presence. Messages to Claire about managing expectations regarding my family. Notes about how to arrange seating, to make it clear who was important and who wasn't. There was even an email where Charles had written, "The groom's father is working class. Keep him in the background. Don't let him give a speech or draw attention. This is a Morrison event." Working class. Like it was something shameful. Like I should be grateful to be allowed to attend at all. But what made my blood boil was an email chain between Charles and his lawyer. Charles had explicitly threatened Philip's employment, told him either he'd comply with every demand or he'd destroy his career. That wasn't wedding planning. That was blackmail. I spent the next 3 days thinking about what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Charles directly, show up at his office and demand he treat my son with respect. But that would probably make things worse for Philip. Another part wanted to show Philip the emails, prove to him that I understood why he'd been so distant, that I didn't blame him for being trapped. But Natalie had given me this information for a reason. She wanted someone to stand up to her father, to stop him from bulldozing over everyone in his path. I decided to do something Charles Morrison wouldn't expect, something that would expose his manipulation while protecting my son. I was going to crash the rehearsal dinner. The rehearsal dinner was scheduled for Friday night, June 14th, at an exclusive restaurant downtown. Only close family and the wedding party were invited. I wasn't on the guest list, obviously, but I'd learned from Gerald that Charles Morrison had planned a speech, a long, elaborate speech about his daughter and her new life with the Morrison family, a speech where he barely mentioned Philip and wouldn't mention me at all. I arrived at the restaurant at 7 p.m., wearing my best suit. The hostess tried to stop me, but I walked past her confidently, like I belonged there. I found the private dining room easily. Through the glass doors, I could see about 30 people seated around a long table. Charles Morrison stood at the head, holding a microphone, mid-speech. He was exactly what I'd imagined. Mid-50s, expensive suit, commanding presence. The kind of man who was used to being obeyed. Philip sat near the middle, Claire beside him. He looked miserable. Claire looked tense. No one looked happy. I pushed open the doors and walked in. The room went silent. Everyone turned to stare at me. Charles stopped mid-sentence, his face darkening with anger. "Who are you? This is a private event." "I'm Thomas Walker," I said calmly. "Philip's father. The man you've been trying to erase from this wedding." Philip's face went pale. Claire grabbed his hand. Charles's jaw clenched. "You're not invited to this dinner. You need to leave. Now." "No," I said simply. "I need to say something. And everyone here needs to hear it." The room was frozen. No one moved. Charles looked like he wanted to physically throw me out, but there were too many witnesses. "You have no right to be here," Charles said, his voice low and dangerous. "I have every right. I'm the father of the groom. You've spent months trying to minimize that, trying to humiliate me and my family, and I'm done being quiet about it." Philip stood up. "Dad, please, don't do this." "I'm sorry, son, but someone has to." I pulled out the folder Natalie had given me. I have documentation here. Emails, messages, proof that Mr. Morrison has been controlling every aspect of this wedding specifically to exclude me, that he's threatened your job to force your compliance. Gasps filled the room. Charles's face turned red. "That's absurd. I've done no such thing." "Really? Then why don't we read some of these emails aloud? Starting with the one where you call me working class and said I should be kept in the background, like I'm someone to be ashamed of." I saw Natalie in the back of the room. She gave me a small nod of encouragement. Charles stepped toward me. "Give me those documents. They're private property. They're evidence of manipulation and blackmail. And everyone here deserves to know what you've been doing. Claire stood up now, too. What is he talking about, Daddy? What emails? Nothing, sweetheart. This man is delusional. Probably drunk. We need security. I'm not drunk, I interrupted. I'm a father who's been systematically erased from his son's life by a controlling, egotistical man who thinks money gives him a right to treat people like garbage. The room erupted in whispers. Charles looked around, realizing he was losing control of the situation. Get out, he said quietly. Now, or I'll have you arrested. For what? Telling the truth. Philip walked over to me. His face was a mixture of anger, fear, and something else. Maybe relief. Dad, please. Just go. You're making everything worse. Am I? Or am I finally making things clear? I handed him the folder. Read it. All of it. See what he's been doing to you. To us. Philip took the folder with shaking hands. Charles moved quickly, trying to grab it, but Philip pulled back. Let me see, Philip said firmly. It was the strongest I'd heard his voice all evening. He opened the folder and started reading. His face changed as he absorbed each page. Shock, anger, hurt, all the emotions I'd felt when I first saw those emails. Claire moved beside him, reading over his shoulder. Her expression shifted from confusion to horror. Daddy wrote these? Claire, don't listen to him. Those are taken out of context. You called his father working class like it's an insult? You threatened to fire him if he didn't do what you wanted. Charles's wife, a woman I assumed was Mrs. Morrison, stood up. Charles, what have you done? The room was chaos now. Family members arguing. People demanding answers. Charles trying to regain control, but failing. Philip looked up at me. His eyes were wet. Why didn't you tell me you knew? I just found out. I wanted to show you. To prove that I understand why you've been distant. This isn't your fault. But you could have talked to me privately. Why do this here? In front of everyone. Because private conversations wouldn't have stopped him. He's been manipulating you for months. Someone needed to expose it publicly, to take away his power. Charles slammed his hand on the table. Enough! This is my daughter's rehearsal dinner. You disrupted it with your lies and your jealousy. Guards! 2 security guards appeared at the door. Charles pointed at me. Remove him. Immediately. But before they could move, Natalie stood up. Dad, stop. He's not lying. I gave him those documents. The room went completely silent. Charles stared at his younger daughter like he didn't recognize her. What did you say? I gave him the emails. I made copies. Because what you're doing is wrong. You've been controlling Philip and Claire's wedding like it's your personal show. You excluded Thomas because you're a snob. And you threatened Philip's livelihood to keep him in line. Natalie, you have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. I've stopped you from ruining their marriage before it even starts. Charles looked around the room at the shocked faces of his family and friends. His carefully constructed image was crumbling. His control was slipping away. Mrs. Morrison walked up to him. We need to talk. Privately. Now. She grabbed his arm and pulled him out of the room. Charles tried to maintain his dignity, but failed. He looked diminished, defeated. When they left, the room erupted in conversation. People talking over each other, asking questions, expressing shock. Philip sat down heavily. Claire sat beside him, her face in her hands. I walked over to them slowly. I'm sorry, I said quietly. I didn't want to ruin your rehearsal dinner, but I couldn't let him keep controlling your lives. Philip looked up at me. You should have told me privately. Would you have believed me? Or would you have tried to protect Charles because you're scared of losing your job? He didn't answer, because we both knew the truth. Claire looked up at me. Her eyes were red from crying. I didn't know he threatened Philip's job. I knew he was controlling, but I didn't know about that. Did you know about the rest? About how he planned to exclude me from everything? She hesitated, then nodded. I knew, and I'm ashamed I went along with it. My father has always been like this. Controlling. Demanding. I've spent my whole life trying to please him. That's not a life, I said gently. That's a prison. She nodded slowly. I see that now. The best man, a guy named Connor, approached us. I think we should probably end the dinner. This is way too much drama. Agreed, Philip said. He stood up and addressed the room. Everyone, I'm sorry. This wasn't how I wanted tonight to go. I think we should all just go home. Process everything. We'll figure out tomorrow. People started leaving. Some approached me to shake my hand. Others gave me dirty looks. The Morrison family members avoided eye contact completely. Eventually, only Philip, Claire, Natalie, and I remained in the room. Philip looked at his sister-in-law-to-be. Natalie, thank you for having the courage I didn't have. You were trapped, she replied. Someone needed to help you. What happens now? Claire asked quietly. My father is never going to forgive this. He's going to make all of our lives hell. Maybe, I said, or maybe he'll realize he can't control everything, that his behavior has consequences. You don't know my father, Claire said sadly. He never admits he's wrong, never backs down. Philip took her hand. Then maybe we need to make some hard choices. She looked at him. Like what? Like whether we want to start our marriage under his control, or whether we want to take back our lives. I left them to talk privately. As I walked to my car, Natalie caught up with me. Thank you for doing that, she said. I know it was hard, but it needed to happen. Your father is going to be furious with you. I know. I'm actually scared of what he'll do. But I couldn't watch him destroy another relationship. He did the same thing to my older brother. Controlled his life so much that he eventually cut contact with all of us. I didn't know Claire had an older brother. She doesn't talk about him. Dad erased him from family photos, from family stories, like he never existed, all because he dared to marry someone Dad didn't approve of. My chest tightened. That's what he's trying to do to me. Erase me from Philip's life. Exactly. And it would have worked if someone hadn't stopped him. We reached my car. I looked at this brave young woman who'd risked her father's wrath to do the right thing. What will you do now? I asked. Probably move out. I've been saving money secretly. I have enough for a small apartment. I can't live under his roof anymore. If you need anything, help finding a place, references, anything, call me. She smiled. Thank you. That means a lot. I drove home feeling exhausted. The adrenaline from the confrontation was wearing off, leaving me drained and uncertain. Had I done the right thing? Or had I just made everything worse? My phone rang around 11 p.m. It was Philip. Can you come back? To my house? Claire and I want to talk to you. I drove to Philip's house. It was close to midnight when I arrived. Philip answered the door looking tired, but somehow lighter than he'd looked in months. Come in, he said. Claire was in the living room, curled up on the couch with tea. She'd been crying but looked calmer now. I sat in the armchair across from them. How are you both doing? Processing, Philip said. We've been talking for hours. About my dad, about the wedding, about everything. Claire spoke up. I called my mother after everyone left. She admitted she knew everything my father was doing. She said she tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't listen. She's furious with him. Where is he now? At home, probably. Mom went back to deal with him. But she told me something important. She said if we want to cancel the wedding or change everything, she'll support us. She's tired of Dad controlling everyone. Philip leaned forward. Dad, I'm sorry. For everything. For being distant. For letting him exclude you. For not standing up for you. You were being blackmailed. I don't blame you. But I should have told you. Should have asked for help. Instead, I just went along with everything because I was scared. Fear makes us do things we're not proud of, I said. What matters is what you do now. Claire set down her tea. We've made some decisions. We're not canceling the wedding, but we're changing everything. What do you mean? Philip smiled for the first time all night. We're taking back control. The wedding will be what we want, not what Charles Morrison wants. Over the next 2 hours, they explained their plan. They'd already called the venue and told them about the changes. Gerald had been incredibly understanding, probably because he'd witnessed Charles's controlling behavior firsthand. The seating arrangement would be changed. I would sit with immediate family, where I belonged. The speeches would include me. I'd be given the opportunity to speak if I wanted to. The photos would include both families equally. No more Morrison-heavy arrangements. And most importantly, they'd set boundaries with Charles. He could attend as father of the bride, but he'd have no control over the event. If he couldn't accept that, he could choose not to come. What about your job? I asked Philip, won't he fire you? Maybe, probably, but I've been doing some research. What he did is illegal. Threatening employment as leverage for personal demands is blackmail. I could sue him. Would you? Philip looked at Claire. She nodded. If we have to, Philip said, we'd rather not, but we're not going to let him control our lives with threats anymore. I'm proud of you, I said. Both of you. This takes courage. Claire wiped tears from her eyes. My father has controlled me my entire life. Every decision, every relationship, every choice. I thought marriage would be my escape, but I was just trading one prison for another, until tonight. Tonight changed everything, Philip agreed, because you stood up for us when we couldn't stand up for ourselves. We talked until almost 2 a.m, about the wedding, about their future, about setting boundaries with toxic people, even when those people are family. When I finally left, I felt hopeful, uncertain about what tomorrow would bring, but hopeful that maybe things would work out. The next morning, my phone exploded with messages. Some from family members asking what happened, some from Philip's friends expressing support, and one from Charles Morrison himself. You've destroyed my daughter's wedding. I hope you're satisfied with yourself. You will regret this. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say to a man who couldn't see past his own ego. Later that day, Philip called. Charles is threatening to pull all funding from the wedding. Says if we don't do things his way, we can pay for everything ourselves. Can you afford that? Not the elaborate wedding he planned. But yes, we can afford something smaller. Something that's actually us. What did Claire say? She's relieved, actually. She never wanted a huge production. That was all her father's ego. She'd be happy with something simple. So what's the plan? We're keeping the date and the venue. Gerald is giving us a major discount because he feels bad about everything. We're cutting the guest list in half. Simplifying everything. Making it about us, not about impressing people. That sounds perfect. There's something else, Philip said carefully. We want you to walk Claire down the aisle with her mother. I was speechless for a moment. What about Charles? He's invited as a guest, but he's not giving Claire away. She doesn't belong to him. She's her own person, and she wants to be walked down by people who supported this marriage, not controlled it. Philip, are you sure? That's a huge statement. We're sure. Claire's mother already agreed. Will you do it? Of course. I'd be honored. The week before the wedding was chaos. Charles tried everything to regain control. He called venue vendors and tried to cancel. He showed up at Philip's work demanding to talk. He sent angry messages to everyone in the family, but none of it worked. People had seen his true character at the rehearsal dinner. His manipulation was out in the open. His power was gone. Claire's mother, Patricia, filed for separation. She told Claire she'd been thinking about it for years, but had stayed for the kids. Seeing how Charles had treated Philip finally gave her the courage to leave. Natalie moved into her own apartment. Charles called her a traitor and told her she was no longer his daughter. She cried for days, but ultimately felt relieved to be free. The wedding guest list shrank dramatically. Many of Charles's business associates declined after hearing about the drama. Claire and Philip didn't mind. They wanted people who actually cared about them there, not people coming for networking opportunities. My ex-wife Diane called me. I heard what happened. I'm sorry I didn't warn you earlier. I knew Charles was controlling, but I didn't know it was that bad. It's okay. Everything worked out. Philip called me yesterday. He sounded happier than he's been in months. You did a good thing, Thomas. I just exposed the truth. They did the hard work of standing up for themselves. On June 14th, the day before the wedding, Philip took me to lunch. Just the two of us. Like old times. I've been thinking a lot, He said over burgers, about our relationship, about how distant I've been. I blamed you for the divorce, for traveling for work, for not being around enough. You had every right to feel that way. Maybe, but I was also angry at the wrong person. Mom was the one who wanted the divorce. She was the one who kept telling me, you didn't care enough. I realized now she was projecting her hurt onto me. Philip continued, I'm not saying you were perfect. You did travel a lot. You did miss some important events. But you also work hard to provide for us, to pay for my education, to support me even when I was pushing you away. I should have been around more. I admitted, I thought working hard was how I showed love. But kids need presents more than presents. Maybe, but I needed to hear that working hard was your way of showing love. Instead, I interpreted it as not caring. And then Charles Morrison reinforced that idea. Made me feel like you weren't good enough. Like I should be ashamed of where I came from. Are you still ashamed? No. I'm proud, actually. Proud of a father who built a life from nothing, who put himself through night school, who worked his way up from factory worker to project manager. That's more impressive than anything Charles Morrison inherited from his family. I felt tears threatening. Thank you for saying that. I'm sorry it took this long. I'm sorry I let someone else define our relationship instead of defining it myself. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Philip spoke again. Tomorrow when you walk Claire down the aisle with Patricia, I want you to know something. You're not just giving her to me. You're showing everyone what real family looks like. Support instead of control. Love instead of manipulation. That's what I want for my marriage. That's what everyone deserves. I said, yeah, and I'm grateful I finally figured that out before it was too late. We finished lunch and drove to the venue to check on final preparations. Gerald had everything under control. The decorations were simple but elegant. The seating arrangement honored both families equally. Everything felt right. June 15th arrived sunny and perfect. I got to the venue early, wearing my best suit, the one I bought specifically for this day, the one that represented a father's pride in his son. Guests started arriving around 2. The ceremony was scheduled for 3. I watched people enter, noting how different this crowd was from what Charles had planned. These were people who knew Philip and Claire, who loved them, who celebrated their happiness instead of treating it like a social obligation. Patricia arrived looking nervous but determined. She'd been incredibly brave through all of this, standing up to Charles after years of submission, supporting her daughter's choices even when it meant personal cost. How are you feeling? I asked her, terrified, excited, free. She laughed nervously. Charles has sent me 17 anger messages today. I finally blocked his number. Good for you. This is the right thing, isn't it? Walking our daughter down the aisle together? Absolutely. She's lucky to have a mother who supports her independence. We practiced our walk a few times with the wedding coordinator. It felt strange, but also meaningful. 2 people who'd been pushed aside by Charles Morrison now standing together, supporting the couple he'd tried to control. Claire appeared at 2:30 for photos. She looked stunning. Her dress was simpler than what Charles had chosen, but it suited her perfectly. She seemed relaxed, genuinely happy. Thank you, she said when she saw Patricia and me, for agreeing to this, for standing up to my father, for showing me what real love looks like. You deserve real love, I told her, and you're getting it. Philip is a good man. He is, and he gets that from you. The words caught me off guard. I'd spent so long feeling inadequate compared to Charles Morrison's wealth and status. Hearing that I'd given Philip something valuable meant everything. The ceremony started at 3. I stood at the back of the aisle with Patricia and Claire, waiting for our cue. Through the doors, I could see Philip standing at the altar. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, nervous but excited. The music changed. Our cue. Claire took both our arms. Ready? She whispered. Ready? Patricia and I said together. We walked down the aisle slowly. I could feel every eye on us. Some people smiled. Some looked confused about why the father of the groom was walking with the mother of the bride. But I didn't care. This was about supporting 2 people brave enough to take back their lives. Halfway down the aisle, I saw him, Charles Morrison, sitting in the back row, not where Patricia had been sitting before, not in a place of honor, just another guest. He looked smaller somehow, defeated. His grand plans had failed. His control was gone. All that remained was a bitter man watching from the sidelines. I didn't feel triumphant seeing him like that. Just sad. Sad that his need for control had cost him so much. His wife, his daughter's respect, his younger daughter's relationship, all because he couldn't let people make their own choices. We reached the altar. The officiant asked, "Who supports this union?" Patricia and I spoke together. "We do." We placed Claire's hands in Philip's. They looked at each other with pure love. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people choosing each other freely. I took my seat in the front row, exactly where I belonged, with family. The ceremony was beautiful. Simple vows that meant everything. No elaborate productions or showing off. Just two people promising to love and support each other. When the officiant pronounced them married, the room erupted in applause. Philip kissed Claire. They turned to face everyone, beaming with genuine happiness. The reception was held in the same venue. Dinner was served. Music played. People danced and celebrated. It felt joyful, authentic, exactly what a wedding should be. When it came time for speeches, the best man went first. He told funny stories about Philip from college, made everyone laugh, kept it light and sweet. Then Philip stood up. "I want to thank everyone for coming today, for supporting Claire and me, for celebrating with us." He paused and looked directly at me. "I especially want to thank my dad for showing me what real strength looks like, not controlling others, not demanding obedience, but standing up for what's right even when it's hard. Dad, you taught me that lesson this week, and it changed my life. Thank you." Everyone applauded. I felt tears streaming down my face. Philip raised his glass to me. I raised mine back. Later, during the father-son dance, Philip and I stood together on the dance floor. We were both terrible dancers, but it didn't matter. I meant what I said. Philip told me, "You saved my marriage before it even started. You saved it by choosing to stand up for yourself. I needed you to show me how. I needed to see someone refuse to be controlled, to see someone value relationships more than status or money. That's all I've ever wanted. Real connection, real family. That's what we have now," Philip said. Finally, the wedding ended around midnight. Claire and Philip left for their honeymoon. Patricia hugged me goodbye, thanking me again for everything. Natalie promised to stay in touch. I drove home exhausted, but satisfied. My phone buzzed with a text from Philip. "Thank you for being there, not just today, but always, even when I push you away. I love you, Dad." I replied, "I love you too, son. So proud of you." As I pulled into my driveway, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. A crumpled invitation that had felt wrong. Months of distance and confusion. A rehearsal dinner confrontation that could have destroyed everything. And a wedding that ultimately brought healing instead of division. I was supposed to be guest of honor at my son's wedding. But I didn't make it. Not as a guest of honor Charles Morrison had planned. Sitting quietly in the background, erased and dismissed. Instead, I became something better. A father who stood up for his son. A man who valued relationships over status. Someone who showed that real honor comes from character, not from seating arrangements or speaking orders. Charles Morrison had tried to write me out of the story, to minimize my importance, to prove that wealth and control matter more than love and authenticity. But he failed, because in the end, the people who showed up with integrity and courage were the ones who mattered, the ones who walked down aisles and gave speeches and danced awkwardly and celebrated real love. I didn't make it as Charles Morrison's guest of honor. I made it as something far more important. Philip's father, present, supportive, and finally, truly appreciated. And that was worth everything. The invitation sat on my desk at home, that heavy cream cardstock with gold embossed letters. I kept it as a reminder, not of what could have been, but of what actually was. A wedding that became a statement about freedom, authenticity, and the power of choosing love over control. My son got married, and I was exactly where I belonged, not in the background, but standing right beside him. Finally, truly, undeniably there.